Hello everybody and welcome to my darkroom. Tonight I'm going to be processing some of my own data of M31 and just kind of going through some of the step-by-step ways in which to do it, and covering some methods for removing gradients and just generally trying to get a good process here at the end of this image. Anyway, so let's just dive right in. So here's the data. Got everything set up here, opened up the data, and when I did, it opened up my crop mask here. What you're looking at is essentially how the image was drizzled. And for those of you who don't know what drizzling is, it essentially adds resolution or fidelity to the image so that you can get better stars, better background. And there are a lot of different ways that you can drizzle based on how much information that you're adding. This was drizzled at 1x. So because of that, the resolution of the image doesn't actually change. And you can see, actually, correction, this was drizzled at 2x, excuse me. The resolution does change at 2x. This image file is actually huge. It's 14,000 by 9,000. So I'm actually going to crop it down, make it a little bit smaller, and then I'm going to downscale it. So that we can actually work with it. But before we do all that, I want to crop the image. Where I was getting to with this mask is that this green image that you see here is you see a difference in this light green and this dark green and around these edges, and that's because this was taken over multiple sessions, and the areas that are this darker green indicate areas that I had less integration time. So you'll notice that during the session, my rotation on the camera actually changed from when I started, and I ended up losing out in this area. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to just crop this image, or rather this image weight from the drizzle, and I'm going to apply it towards the actual image, so that the signal is equal across the whole thing. And while I'm doing this, I'll just explain. So in order to get and have drizzle work effectively, you need to dither your images. And I dither with auto guiding. So what is dithering? Well, that means that in between each, well, not in between each, but every 5 frames or so, my computer that controls my telescope will actually move my mount a couple pixels so that the image changes in between each shot, or in between each of those 5 frames. And the reason that's important is when you are doing your drizzle, the image needs to be just slightly different. Otherwise, you end up with something that's called walking noise. In any case, so that's why the image just changes slightly, and why I've needed to crop it. So that's done. I'm going to just close down the dynamic crop tool here. And I'm going to close this because we're done with it. So in order to make this file slightly smaller, so it's easier to work with on stream, I'm going to use a process called integer resample. And I'm going to downsample it by a factor of 2. And that's listed right here. And we're just going to apply that this integer resample process to our image. And we're going to grab the arrow and drag it over. Let's get a little music here. One second. Come on, music. Or not. Does not want to cooperate tonight. It's taking its time tonight. Just bear with me here. There it goes. Okay, so that applied, and we're just going to do a quick before and after look here, see what it did. You'll see some of them, stars just aren't quite as color fringed as they were. This is actually 15 hours. I would have to double check for sure, but it's more than 12, less than 20, as I recall. Okay, so we ran BXT, and the next thing that we want to do is do a gradient removal. And there are a couple of different ways that you can do a gradient removal. So when I say gradient, what am I talking about? So you'll notice that the image gets lighter to darker from left to right diagonally here. You got this red kind of over here in this corner, you got this green over here, you got this blue over here. And all those, all that's been caused by light pollution. It could be the next door neighbor turned on their porch light, a car drove by, the moon was bright. There's a lot of different things that can give you gradients. In any case, I want to remove this, and I want to get a nice flat looking image to work with so that when I stretch it, this gradient doesn't get stretched along with it. So how do we do that? A couple of different ways. Easiest, fastest, and well, to be honest, cheapest way to do it would be use Graxpert. It is an AI-based utility that will take a look at your image, and it will do the gradient removal for you. I'm going to apply it just real quick. I'm not actually going to use this on tonight's process, but I want to show you how it works. You just open up Graxpert, and you apply it. It is a decent chunk. I have a longer project that, wink wink, I can actually add some data in with this. But tonight, this is just my own. I did a collaboration with someone that I know. Okay, so you can see here briefly what Graxpert did. This is the corrected image on the right. This is the non-corrected image on the left. So in any case, I want to try and use a different tool tonight. It is a new utility called MGC. And it stands for Multiscale Gradient Correction. And the way it works is the good folks over at Pixinsight have been surveying the night sky and collecting data via a project called MARS, which is the All Sky Reference Survey. And the data that they use is used to correct your image based on realistic images of the sky that have been taken from dark sky locations. So it kind of takes out some of the guesswork on how the gradient should look by comparing it to a realistic reference. So the first thing that we're going to do is I actually need to plate solve this image and get an astrometric solution for it so it knows where to look. So I'm going to tell it this is M31 and this was a focal distance of 350 millimeters and the pixel scale was 592. I think this was taken in 2023, but that doesn't matter so much. In any case, click OK, and run your image solver script on it. And you'll see over here kind of what the tool is doing as it scrolls through and finds its location. And it looks like we got a good plate solve, so it's going to just finish running out its process here. This will take a few seconds. Okay, so it's finishing up, and the next part that we're going to do is we're going to run a flux calibration. And what that does is it's going to look at the light that is across this image right here, this spectrophotometric flux calibration, and it's going to just store some metadata into the image so that it knows when we go to use MGC, it knows what that information is so it can apply the tool correctly. So this is actually all correct. This ideal QE curve is perfect for galaxies like Andromeda. And my filters are actually all set up correctly. If I'd used a different filter, I would select which filter I'd used or which camera sensor I'd used. So if you're a Nikon shooter, you would pick the closest Nikon sensor for your camera. Same thing for Canon. In any case, this is all good for what I used. This was shot with a Sony A7 IV. So I'm going to drag this over and apply it to my image. Don't worry, your stream isn't messed up. It turns white anytime I click off my screen, so that's normal. I'll be back here in just a second. Okay, so now that data is stored in the image, and the next thing that I want to do is open up the MGC tool. So this is a bit of an iterative process. The way it works is you have these gradient scales, and think the lower the number, the more aggressive the gradient correction will be. Ideally, you want to use the largest number for your data and still get a good correction. So for right now, the gradient scale by default is set at 1024, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm not going to change anything, and I'm just going to drag it over and apply it to the image and see what we get. So it's going to give you a gradient model, and if you stretch that, Control A, or you can hit the nuclear button, it's going to show you what it removed. And if you hit up here, this is going to change it to a 24-bit image, because this is not exactly what it removed. There you go. It's a little smoother. And it's going to show you exactly what it corrected for. So it got rid of this dark corner, some of this red color, this green we were talking about, and this blue over here. But it looks like it actually took out some of the color in Andromeda. So I would say that's probably not a great correction. I'm going to close down this gradient for now, and we're going to take a look at what the image actually looks like. Now, once you've applied MGC, you actually need to reapply your stretch so you can see what it did. Alright, so that's what it looks like right now. I will say that I still am seeing gradient up here, green. And this corner actually looks still quite dark to me, so I don't really think we got it. And I think we're going to need to go down in scale. So I'm going to hit the back button here, and we're going to try it again. So I'm going to go down to 768. And we're going to reapply it. And this is still a pretty new tool, and I'll be honest, I am not the best at using it. I know how to make it work, but it's probably going to take me a couple attempts here to get it right. A lot of you might just think, well, heck, I just use Graxpert and be done in 30 seconds. And absolutely, yes, you can do that. I just like to get a bit more of a better correction, or I should say a more accurate correction. Graxpert will sometimes remove some faint details that you may not want to give up in your image. Alright, so that's getting closer. I'm going to go down one more scale and take a look. I have a feeling this is going to be way too strong. Okay, so it looks like it's a little bit better, and we might actually roll with this, but the problem is we're losing too much color in Andromeda. So the way you can correct for that is if you hit the control key and you click on any of these three dots, it will move these all together. This is the scale factors, and moving this more to the right will actually make it less aggressive in some of these areas, and you'll see what I mean here when we look at the gradient model. Excuse me. Okay, so before we had that really bright halo here in the middle. Now we've got kind of this purple goop, which actually isn't quite right either. So that was a little too aggressive. We're gonna just back down a little bit until we find that happy medium. Closer. Back down just a little more. Might be slightly, you can start to see here that the core is starting to brighten up a bit. I'm not sure I'm happy with that, so we're going to try one more time, go back the other direction. 1.5. I have no idea how this is going to look until we stretch it. But for now, I'm going to say that's close enough. Okay, so we're done with our gradient removal. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to find a background value for doing a background neutralization before we do our color calibration. So I'm going to open up SPCC, or spectrophotometric color calibration, and I'm going to select the same values here that I did for my flux calibration. We want those to correspond with each other. And down here under background neutralization, it's going to look for an area of interest. You're going to point it to that is a neutral part of the sky that does not contain any stars, any objects, no nebulosity. It is just a neutral portion of black space, ideally. There's a utility that I use for that. It was made by a really smart dude named Seti Astro. And it will help you find that background. So the way I like to use this tool is I like to change this size to 25 and filter out objects. Now this is the fastest way to do it. You can turn on this slow search function. It takes longer. It will provide you more accurate results, but I would say 50% of the time it gives you the same result as the fast search does. The only time that I find that useful is if I'm working on an image that is basically all nebula and there really isn't any natural or any background space. I'll use the slow search sometimes to just try and give me a better guess. So I'm going to go ahead and hit search. And you'll see that when it was done, it gave me this little guy here, which is my background space. And then it added this little tab over here, which shows it to me. I'm actually going to rename this so it's not a file name that is quite so large. If you want to do that, you can double click it. And I'm just going to name it M31. Okay. So now we have our background value that we can use our neutralization on. If you click the tab and you hit Control, you can drag it over and you get the little plus sign and drop it in as your area of interest. And then apply your SPCC. So this is going to compare it to a reference catalog which is going to give us, ideally, accurate star color. And this is all part of, you know, your workflow that you do before you actually stretch the image. Some things are better done in a linear state. So this is just all the linear pre-processing that you have to do before you actually get to stretching the image. Alright, so after you have done your color calibration, you're going to want to look at it with a linked stretch. And that's this little, well, it's like 2 chain links. You click that guy and apply it. You can also look at an unlinked stretch, which will give you that more of a green color. When I say linked versus unlinked, it means that the color channels, the red, the green, and the blue, are linked together, and they should all be aligned when you look at them on the histogram. An unlinked stretch, clearly the green is more out front than the red or the blue. Sometimes that's nice for depending on the type of process that you want to do, but for the purposes of this, I'm going to use the link stretch. And as you can tell, Andromeda is a pretty nice color. Got some blue outer bands. Stars look pretty natural, so I would say our color calibration was pretty accurate. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to calculate the point scale function of this image, or the abbreviation for that is PSF. And the way we do that is PSF image. And what that means is we just want to know how the light is distributed across the image. Why do we need that? When we go to use Blur Exterminator and sharpen up our stars, it needs to know what that value is, right here, the PSF diameter in pixels, in order to accurately sharpen the stars and sharpen the galaxy. This automatic PSF function absolutely works. I just find that you get better results calculating it manually. So I'm going to render that right now. I like to use around 1200 stars as a sample, and it's going to give us that here in just a moment, tell us how many we're using. Whenever it decides to do its thing. Oh, so yeah, 7,300 stars is too many. So we're going to increase this up to like 2.2. You can increase the sensitivity up or down. Yeah, 8,000 stars, we'd be sitting here all night. 2,800 is a lot. I'm gonna go up one more. Whatever, that's fine. 2257. We're just gonna let it run. And guys, I've shut off my camera for a second while I'm having a drink, because I don't think y'all want to sit here and watch me gurgle things. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so in order to calculate the PSF, we need a calculator. Shocking. And we're going to take an average of these two metrics. So it's 0.99. It's actually quite small. And the stars are pretty big. So I'm going to bring them down to 20%. And I'm going to adjust the halos out slightly just to give the stars a softer appearance. You can bring those halos in really tight. By making this a negative scale, you can bring them in by 50%. I've found that this 10% number gives a nice natural looking star. If you bring those values in too far on the negative side, the stars start to lose their shape. So I found this 2010 works really nice. And we're gonna apply it and see what we get. Now with galaxies, this sharpened non-stellar metric can be a bit of a sticky wicket. Andromeda, it's not so bad, but on a lot of galaxies where you have a lot of really fine detail, it will actually over sharpen it, and I have it maximized right now. So we're going to apply it this way, see how it looks, and we may need to go back and do it again here in just a second. Okay, so that's the after. There's the before. So we tone down those stars quite a bit. Now we want to take a look at some of this detail in the dust lane, make sure nothing's over sharpened. No, I think it looks just fine. Okay. So we've removed our gradient, we plate solved, we color calibrated, and we've done blur exterminator. Next step is going to be to remove the stars, and I'm going to use star exterminator to do that. Two main tools out there for removing stars: StarNet and Star Exterminator. Star Exterminator is a paid for utility, StarNet is free. They're both effective, and they both have their pros and cons. I use both tools, so tonight I'm going to use Star Exterminator. So one thing you got to be careful with on Star Exterminator is it will, from time to time, remove nebulosity or chunks of information that you might not want removed. And there are some bits of Andromeda that it is actually removed from the data. So you have a couple of different things that you can do here. You can decide, well, I don't want to use Star Exterminator and I want to go and use StarNet. Or you can actually run StarNet on your star exterminated image and see if you can lift the stars out of this and leave behind this nebulosity and then add it back in, which is what I'm going to try now. So it kind of worked. Problem is, some of these things didn't get removed. Just gonna try one more thing here. Run it a second time, see if I can get those out of there too. So that's a little bit better. Let's see what it looks like when we add it back in. So I just opened up Pixel Math and I selected M31, which is my starless image. There's my stars. And let's see what happens when I add it in. Yeah, it just adds in a bunch of star artifacts, which I don't really want. So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to close these down. And we're just going to call it a day. So I have my stars and my starless. And I'm going to rename my stars BXT stars. I like to rename my images once I'm done with them. So I know what they are. A lot of times you'll end up with a couple different star masks, and if it's not named correct, you won't know which one is which. So I'm going to drag that over here and just dump it for now. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is start to address some of the noise in the image. And if I zoom in here, you'll notice that it's got some real color blotchiness. You'll see some blues, some reds, some greens. That's all color noise. And you can combat some of that by using calibration frames, specifically bias frames. However, your camera sensor, you're going to end up with some color noise in your image just by virtue of the temperature changes, and it happens. So between color frames, calibration frames, your bias frames, your dark frames, all those are supposed to correct it or give you the best starting point as possible. However, you're still going to need to do some noise reduction, and I'm going to use Noise Exterminator. There's a new update for this, which I need to load. It is an AI-based noise removing tool. And this new update actually addresses color noise. So I'm going to change that to 60% noise reduction and 100% color noise reduction, and I'm just going to run it. This is going to take a minute, guys, so sorry for the delay. This newer version is better, but it does take longer. I also crank up the iterations to 5, which increases the time. The more iterations, it does a better job, but it does take longer. And one thing about maximizing the color noise removal is you can't actually remove color from your image. So you always kind of want to look at a before and after, look at a nice colorful part of your image and make sure you're not losing something that's important to you in your process. You'll see my wild hat there. Alright, wrapping that up. We'll see what we got here. So it did a really nice job with the color noise. Let's see if we lost any real color in Andromeda. Doesn't really look like it. Before and after. Not sure how well you can see that on stream. Get in a little closer here. Before, after. Okay, so that's done for pre-processing. Now we get to the fun part where we actually stretch the image. So remember, this is using the screen transfer function. This hasn't actually been stretched, so before we do that, we want to remove it. And that's how the image looks right now. And then you want to pick your preferred stretching method. I use generalized hyperbolic stretch, or GHS. And you're going to want to open a preview window by hitting this little circle here. And then we're going to start to stretch the image. So right now, all of the data, when you think about your histogram, is on the left side of the histogram. And we want to pull it over so that we can actually start to see what the image looks like. And you'll notice Andromeda starts to get blown out pretty quick. There's actually all kinds of information that's right in here, but because we've stretched it so hard, we've lost all of that by clipping it on the high end. It just becomes white. So how do we fix that? You can adjust this local intensity of your stretch. We're going to change this to a factor of 1 and see what the change does. And right there you can start to see some of the spiral into the center of Andromeda, but I still think that's pretty bright. Now, as you adjust this stretch intensity, I can go all the way up to, let's say, 8. But you'll notice that all the contrast kind of goes out of Andromeda, and the image just sort of looks flat. So it's a bit of a trade-off. So I don't want to go as high as 8. I want to start to back this down. And you can see the core there. And you can see some of the detail in it. And you just kind of want to play with it. So right there, it's getting way too bright. So I'm going to go back. Seemed like a factor of 3 was nice. Let's take a look at our overall image. Looks pretty good. So now that we've got our stretch intensity set, we can continue to drag this over. I like to be right around this 1/3 mark. Let's take a look at our core one more time. Sorry, I think my camera's covering that up. You can actually, if you click this square right here, you can draw a point and then look over what you want to see. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to apply that. And remember, in PI, it always shows you what the next step would look like in the preview window if you applied the same thing again. So in order to see what it looks like currently, we need to reset this tool. And I'm going to do that by clicking this right here. Alright, so there it is. That's our first stretch done on M31. And at this point, I like to change how I'm looking at my histogram and see how it's filling out in this window. So you can do that by clicking this little log button right here. Boop. And this sort of shows you how the information is spread out across your histo. Over here to the left, all this black space is, well, it's exactly that. It's black. But we need to reset the black point. And the way that you do that is by going to this transformation type right here. And from the drop down, change to linear. And I'm going to zoom in on my histogram a little bit. It's right here. It's a scale adjustment. Go to like 10. And you'll see the data starts to come in right around here. If you click on that window, right where my mouse is, you can actually set a black point. And then you hit send to black point. Now you can see on my image, it's changed. The black point's been changed, but I haven't clipped any of the information in the back by doing it by eye. This is based on the actual information that is available in the histogram. So once you've sent it to the black point, you're going to apply it. Again, shows you the next step. You need to reset the tool. And we're going to do our second stretch. So Andromeda actually has a lot of faint, nice outer stuff here. And you can target that specifically by clicking on the space. And it's going to show you where that data is on your histogram. You see how my little yellow line is moving around up there? That's showing where that data is located on the histogram. You can set that as a symmetry point and stretch directly in those areas. So right there, or a darker area, right there. I like to set it right in the center of this bump. You're going to send that to SP, send to symmetry point, and you're going to stretch again. Now, as we're stretching, keep in mind that that core is getting blown out again. So you're actually going to need to adjust this local intensity in a negative factor on your second stretch so that you can maintain this fidelity in the core without it getting too bright. You can go all the way down to -5, but just like going up to 8 on the positive side, going down to -5 has the same effect where you could lose some contrast in your image. So again, you're going to need to just play with the slider and figure out what looks good and right for your data. And a lot of these are just personal choices and preferences, so you do it how you like. I'm just going to show you how to apply the tool correctly, and then you figure out what your process should look like. Okay, so I like that. I'm going to stretch just a little more and see how much we can get. You want to be careful because you might actually be stretching some of your noise. You're also going to stretch any gradients you missed. So if I stretch this real hard just to show you, these are all the gradients that I didn't get. There's this big edge gradient right here. There's this purple. It's just kind of a mess. So you don't want to stretch too hard. Your histogram is also starting to kind of bifurcate right here. You get these two little bumps. That's not good. So I'm going to back this back down. Let's just stop it right there. Okay. So I've got this nice filled out histogram window. I've got a little bit information here on the end that I can stretch further. I'm going to get that by using what's called an arc sign stretch. And we're going to open another preview window. This tool is nice because it kind of helps you get that last little bit there at the end. And you can, I'll leave my histogram open here so you can see the change. We're going to estimate black point. We're also going to protect our highlights, so we don't want to overstretch too much. So you hit this estimate black point, it's going to show you everything that is currently clipped. And we want to drag this down, because again, we don't want to clip any data. We got some nice faint outer stuff here on the outer arms of Andromeda. This nice halo. So I'm just going to back off a little more. I'm going to zoom in, take a look at some of our dark areas. Doesn't look like anything's really clipped. And I'm going to apply that. You can adjust this stretch factor and see if you can get a little bit more. But I can tell you that based on how this is stretched, anything extra I do is just going to be too much. I might be able to get like a 0.05 out of it, 1.05. The heck did I do? I save it a different name? Yeah, I must have. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Okay. Yeah, ever so slightly. It's just a little less. I'm gonna open up camera raw filter. There's actually a lot of purple, red in here. So I'm gonna go into color mixer. Pull these purples down just a little bit. And you can see it's starting to get blotchy as I've adjusted these magentas. See, it's not quite picking all of it up. So you want to be real careful with using the color mixer. I'm probably not going to do this. I'm going to need a mask to do it. And that's fine. So I'm just going to run this through a utility real quick called Topaz. It's going to help me denoise. Topaz is a really weird tool. It is not designed for astrophotography. And it will actually add details and data to your image if you're not careful and you're not using it on the correct settings. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here in just a second. So right now I have it on this severe noise setting. I have the enhanced sharpness at 0. I have color noise at 0. And if you look at these areas, get in real close. See, it's actually over sharpening them. Like, that's not real at all. And you'll find that it works on some of your data, and you'll find that it doesn't work on some at all. Galaxies is really tough. Nebulas, it's actually great on. But anything that is a fine detail, there's a good chance that Topaz is going to over sharpen it and create effects that don't really exist in your image. That may not be a problem for you. You may not care. You just want it to look as good and as sharp as possible. That's totally fine. For myself and the way I like to process, I like to have as little added impact on the image as possible and have it be accurate. So I'm going to be honest, this image is not particularly noisy as it is. So I'm probably not even going to use it. I'm just going to tinker around with a couple of these presets. See if I can get it in such a way that it doesn't alter the image in any way, but we may not have any luck. Bit of color noise there. I'm just going to apply that. So that's my total disclaimer about Topaz. Use it at your own risk. Because it definitely can screw your image up in a big hurry. So back over to Pixinsight real quick here. And we're going to do some color work. So I like to use a tool called Selective Color Correction. And it kind of gives you these little auto masks where it looks at your image. Here, let's show mask. And it's going to show you it as it sees the color that is in your image. Now we're actually getting some really weird banding. And that's because of the sensor banding that's coming through from my Sony camera. This wasn't taken with an Astro camera, so it does have some sensor banding artifacts. Had I not stretched it as hard as I did, these probably wouldn't be showing up, but this waffle-like pattern that you're seeing is it's from that. So I'm going to look at a magenta mask here. Woof. And let's see if we can make some adjustments to this mask and clean up some of this purplish magenta color we got. You want to be careful. You'll notice I did get rid of that purple effect, but you don't want Andromeda to start turning green on you either. actually save an entire project in Pixinsight, which is really cool. So right now, my cache and my history and everything that I've done to my image is all been saved in the History Explorer, as well as what tools that I've used. So I'd like to maintain that. In the event that I need to go back, I can do so. So like right here, History Explorer, you did these curves transformations. In any case, if you come up here to File and you go Save Project, it will save everything that you currently have open and its history. So I'm going to go to my Downloads folder, and I'm just going to save the entire project real quick. It does take a minute to do it though, so bear with me here. Sorry for the delay, guys. I just don't really want to start all over. Anybody need a bathroom break? Now would be the time. Okay. We're good. So back into selective color correction. I don't think that mask actually exported. Yeah, it's totally failing to do what it is supposed to do. Oh no, there it is, never mind. So I'm going to open a histogram transformation here. And I want to brighten this mask up just a little bit. Yeah, I don't think this mask is going to work either. Just see something here real quick. There are reds way up at the top. And our greens also way up at the top. Basically right now I'm just doing a curves adjustment only trying to affect this core. It's a bit of a tricky proposition. Getting closer. Okay. And just the greens down slightly. And starting to come out a little bit more how I like Andromeda to look and how it should accurately look. I'm going to open a range mask and we're going to look at this brightest section here in the middle of Andromeda's core. Make it blurry by hitting the smoothness slider. And we got these two outer galaxies here that are also in this mask, which I don't really want to change the color of those objects, so I'm going to remove those from the mask. Clone stamp. The way you use clone stamp is you change the radius, control, click, and then drag to where you want to erase. Alright. Don't want to do too much here. Just looking for a bit of a yellow. Mask is not blurry enough. I'm going to convolute it further. You can open up the convolution tool in a preview window. And you can blur that thing to your heart's content. So I'm going to take this mask, this range mask that I just created, and I'm going to import it into selective color correction. There it is. If you want to make sure you got the right mask, just click Show Mask. And we're going to add in some yellow. Wow, that mask totally did not apply. I need to invert it. Can I do that from here? Nope. Process, invert. There we go. Now let's import it. Back over to selective color correction. Import mask. Make sure you're selected the right utility when you enter the selective color correction tool. You want to be on the right picture or it doesn't work right. All right. Now we got it. So I'm just making some adjustments to the luminance. So I don't want it to get too bright in there. And it's a little too blue. So I'm going to take some blue out. Here we go. Looking a little green though. Yeah, that's looking okay. I'll apply that. Still looking awfully green. There's a green noise removal tool called SCNR right here, or again from your processes. SCNR. I'm just going to set it up to remove green. This is not a tool you want to use when your data is in a linear state, only after you've stretched it. The core is still really bright, so we're going to try and walk that back a little bit and use this tool called Color Corrected HDMRT. And that's going to help us compress this really bright signal that's in the core and still keep our color. Wow. Way too much. Let's try again. And the amount of iterations that you do is how strong the effect will be. So in this case, I don't really want it to be that strong. This is actually overstretched, and trying to walk it back a little bit. Save the image because it is too much right now. Let's go with this. think that's fine, but these blues are way too blue now. Typically you would have these nice dust lanes. These would be brown. So in any case, we'll go back in here one last time. This color correction. And I want to tone these blues down just a little bit. I think that's looking a little more natural. Color work is some of the hard stuff, because you want your colors to look natural. Otherwise, how is your image any different than something that's been AI generated? You want to maintain the color that exists in the image and augment it, not really add to it or change it too much. So there's a green tinge there. I'm going to get rid of that, and we're going to recombine our stars. So here are our stars again. We're going to stretch these again with the Seti Astro tool. Star stretch. And we don't like green stars, and we want to see a preview. Alright, it's thinking. So there's our star field. Stretch it a little more. Change this to a factor of 5.5 from the default of 5. I think that looks pretty good. Maybe a tad more. We can always reduce them. Let's see what this looks like. So that star stretch is applied on the top of an STF, so you need to remove the STF, press F12, and there's what your stars actually look like. So I want to reset the black point one more time. I'm going to use the arc sign stretch again, estimate black point, and just back down those dots. These over here, yes, this is clipped to black, but this is black anyways because this was an artifact that I didn't crop out. So I'm okay with it. Can actually crop that after the fact too. And we're gonna name this starless_1. I'm gonna name these guys stars_1. And we're going to use this pixel math formula to add our stars back in. To keep them nice and balanced so they're not blown out. It's actually pretty close. Star color's a little wrong. Star kind of has a slightly reddish magenta hue. Same thing with this orange star over here. So I'm going to use a script called correct magenta stars and apply it. And we're just going to add a bit of saturation in on our stars as well. Make them pop a bit. So let's add those in one more time. Same pixel math formula. I think that's pretty decent. Let's just do 1 star reduction on it and see what that looks like. We'll protect our small stars. So before and after, let's just apply it and see what it looks like. We can always undo it. Actually, I think it's too strong. So one last time. And I'm going to change this down to soft. Pretty much in the home stretch here, guys. Yeah, I think that's about as good as we're going to get on this one for tonight. It's absolutely not the greatest data in the world. I wish it was taken with my astrophotography camera. I need to come back and look at Andromeda again now that I've got it. I'm pretty much going to wrap up there, gang. Appreciate you watching. I hope that you guys will follow the channel. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Subscribe, like, follow the channel. Good night.